It all started with a coin that almost went completely unnoticed. A simple 2021 quarter, the kind most people toss onto their dresser at night without even looking. But this one wasn't ordinary. This one had a secret. A secret so powerful that when it finally came to light, collectors across the country were left stunned. Dealers were scrambling for answers, and one man found himself holding a coin worth more than he ever believed possible. A coin that would later be whispered about in auction rooms as the 2021 L quarter dollar worth up to $1.5 million. With someone who saw what everyone else ignored. One night, a collector sat at his kitchen table, sorting through pocket change from a routine trip to the gas station. He wasn't expecting anything special, just another pile of common coins. But then, his fingers brushed against something different. The shine looked wrong. The texture felt off. And when he raised it into the light, he knew something was waiting to be discovered. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He noticed something unusual in the mint mark region. Not AP, not AD, not an S, but a faint, ghost-like impression that experts would later identify as the mysterious L variety, a minting anomaly so rare that only a handful of examples were ever verified. A marking that wasn't supposed to exist. A marking that changed everything. Collectors were shocked because this wasn't just an error. It wasn't just a die slip or a mispunch. This was a mistake that shouldn't have been possible. The 2021 issue already had tight quality control, and yet somehow this rogue variety slipped through the cracks and into everyday circulation. The man who found the first one described the moment as electrifying. His hands shook. His heart raced. He couldn't believe he'd been carrying something this valuable in his pocket all day. And as he stared at the bizarre mint mark, the reality sank in. He wasn't holding a quarter. He was holding a ticket to a new life. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The L anomaly isn't obvious at first glance. You have to tilt it into the light just right, almost like the coin is whispering its secret only to those patient enough to listen. Sometimes it appears crisp, other times faint like a shadow. Experts still debate the origin. Some claim it came from a damaged minting punch. Others say it was a transitional test mark accidentally left in the die before production. And a few believe it was the result of a mint worker experimenting during a shift change, never expecting the test strike to escape into circulation. The moment the first genuine example hit the auction block, the room felt electric. Bidders leaned forward. Phones lit up. You could hear the tension in the air. By the time the gavel fell, the number was so high that veteran collectors shook their heads in disbelief. It wasn't just a sale. It was history. The 2021 L quarter dollar had crossed the line into the realm of coins worth over $1 million. But here's where the story takes an unbelievable turn that a second example surfaced, then a third. Not many, but enough to confirm something big. All of them showed the same mysterious L anomaly. All of them were from different regions of the country. And every time one appeared, the value climbed higher. Dealers rushed to buy them even before auction houses had time to list them. They weren't just adding coins to their collections. They were hunting treasure. One collector described finding his in the most unlikely way. He was cleaning out the junk drawer in his garage, tossing aside random screws, old receipts, and a pile of coins he hadn't touched in years. As he poured them into a tray, one quarter rolled away and landed face up near his toolbox. He almost ignored it, but something told him to pick it up. And when he did, he realized he was holding a miracle. His life changed in seconds. But what happened after that shocked even the auction experts. His example was pristine. Razor-sharp detail, mirror-like fields, and the mysterious L was clearer than ever. When it finally sold, it pushed the market into a frenzy. Collectors were now convinced this accidental variety was one of the rarest modern U.S. coin discoveries of the decade. And the whispers grew louder. The mystery gave the coin a kind of mythical aura. And with every new rumor, its value climbed higher. Dealers began calling it the ghost quarter. Some called it the lab quarter. Others referred to it simply as the $1 million 2021. But no matter what you called it, everyone agreed on one thing. If you found one, your life would never be the same. But here's the part nobody expected. Experts realized that nearly all verified examples shared one strange trait: slight doubling near the date. Not enough to classify as a typical doubled die, but just enough to reveal that these coins came from an early and unstable die state. A perfect storm of minting chaos. a mistake that produced beauty. And here's the detail that most people overlook. On the reverse, right near the rim, there's often a microscopic distortion that looks like a ripple in the metal. You won't see it unless you tilt the coin slowly. But once you notice it, it becomes unmistakable. That ripple, paired with the mysterious L, is what sends collectors into a frenzy. It's the reason auction houses keep raising their estimates. It's the reason dealers whisper about it at shows. And it's the reason this unsuspecting quarter now holds a value that could change someone's life overnight. But what happened next? Nobody saw coming. A retired veteran in Ohio found one in a coin roll he bought from a grocery store's self-checkout return tray. He said he almost didn't check the tray at all. But when he did, a single 2021 quarter was sitting there waiting. When he got home and saw the L, he sat down at his kitchen table and cried. It wasn't just money to him. It was hope. It was possibility. It was a second chance. His story spread like wildfire. Collectors were inspired. Ordinary people suddenly started checking their change again. Roll hunters stayed up late into the night, combing through mountains of coins. Everyone was chasing the same dream. A coin worth up to $1.5 million. And the legends kept growing. One dealer said he handled an example for less than 5 minutes before a buyer offered him 6 figures on the spot just for a chance to own it. Another collector said he'd trade half his entire collection for one. The demand became overwhelming, and the supply remained frozen in mystery. You might. And here's how to find out. Start with the mint mark area. Look closely. Tilt the coin under a bright light. You're searching for that faint, ghost-like L impression. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it's barely there. But if you see it, even the hint of it, you've found something extraordinary. Next, check the date. Look for subtle doubling. Not dramatic doubling, just a soft shadow effect. A split-second hesitation in the metal that hints at the unstable die. Then, examine the reverse rim. Slowly rotate the coin. Look for that tiny wave, that ripple in the edge that makes the coin look almost alive. That detail separates the true variety from accidental damage. And lastly, trust your instincts. Because the people who found the million-dollar examples all said the same thing. Something about the coin felt different before they even knew why. The next legendary 2021 L quarter dollar could be lying in your change tray, hiding in a forgotten drawer, or mixed into a roll you haven't opened yet. And if you pick it up, if you look closely enough, if you recognize the signs, then the next life-changing discovery could belong to you. They said a simple 2016 P. Roosevelt quarter, the kind millions of Americans spent without a second thought, somehow sold for over $1 million. And the strangest part? The man who found it almost didn't bother to look twice. He thought it was just pocket change. But the truth behind this coin, the real reason collectors are losing their minds over the 2016 P. Roosevelt quarter, is far stranger than any rumor. And once you hear what happened, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. It began with a story whispered among a handful of dealers, a story that spread like wildfire because it sounded too unreal to be ignored. A man in Pennsylvania opened his drawer, pulled out a quarter he had kept only because the edge looked strange, and decided, on a whim, to bring it to a local shop. The dealer took one glance, stepped back, and said nothing for almost 10 seconds. He later described the moment as electric, like his entire career had led to that single instant. What he held wasn't just a coin. It was a mistake, a ghost from the mint, a one-in-a-billion error that should never have escaped into circulation. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because when that 2016 P. Roosevelt quarter reached the auction floor, people expected it to go high, but no one expected this. Bidders from multiple states started a frenzy. Dealers were whispering, pointing, calling friends, rushing to verify the details. By the time the final gavel dropped, the room had gone silent. The coin sold for life-changing money. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands. It pushed close to $1 million, and the story spread so fast that collectors everywhere started tearing through change jars, glove compartments, and old mason jars hidden in closets. But here's where the mystery deepens. This wasn't a typical error coin. It wasn't just a double strike, a clipped planchet, or a rotated die. What gave this coin its insane value was something more subtle, something almost invisible, something most people miss even when it's staring right at them. And that tiny detail, so small, so easy to overlook, is exactly why another one of these could be sitting in your pocket right now. Collectors were shocked because the mint insisted no such mistakes were produced in 2016. According to official records, nothing abnormal left the Philadelphia Mint. But this quarter told a different story. Under magnification, you could see something haunting, a misaligned die that didn't completely reset during the strike. That microscopic shift caused the edges to warp in a way that looked almost intentional, like the coin was trying to reveal its own secret. This particular coin had a faint doubling around Roosevelt's eye and the date. It wasn't the dramatic doubling from earlier decades, but a delicate distortion caused by pressure inconsistencies during mass production. The mint never acknowledged it publicly, but die specialists swear this type of anomaly only happens under rare mechanical stress that usually destroys the coin before it ever leaves the factory. Yet somehow, this one survived. And here's where things get even more dramatic. After the auction, another collector stepped forward claiming he had seen the same type of quarter years earlier, but dismissed it as damage. He admitted he tossed it back into circulation. That revelation sent shockwaves through the community because it meant at least one more error existed. And if one more exists, how many more could be out there? Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these 2016 P quarters because nobody knows the exact number. It could be 10, it could be 2, or it could be just that one, making it a once-in-a-lifetime miracle worth well over $1 million today. But what happened next pushed the story into legend that a retired collector from Ohio revealed that he once bought a roll of 2016 quarters directly from the bank the year they were released. He opened half the roll, spent a few, saved a few, and tossed the rest into a shoebox in his garage. When he heard about the $1 million sale, he panicked and dumped the entire box onto his kitchen table. Neighbors say they heard him shouting from outside because he was convinced he spotted the same warped edge pattern on one of his coins. Experts rushed to verify it. Cameras were ready. Collectors waited, breathless. But then came the heartbreak. It wasn't the one. It was close, but not exact. A near miss. A reminder that this treasure is still hiding somewhere. And this is where your story may begin. Because every time someone brings in a 2016 P Roosevelt quarter, every time a dealer flips one under a light, there's that split-second pause, that moment where their heart jumps, where they wonder, is this the one? Is this the next $1 million miracle? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look at the left side of the coin, where the rim meets the field. If the edge looks slightly higher or lower than normal, not damaged, but unnaturally uneven, pay attention. Rotate it slowly and watch how the rim seems to shift in height. Not dramatic, just enough to feel like something is off. Then examine the date. A genuine example shows the faintest doubling on the right side of the numbers. It's not thick, not bold, but soft, like a shadow the metal tried to push away. And Roosevelt's eye, that's the heart of the mystery. On the $1 million specimen, a subtle, ghost-like outline appears above the eyelid. Most people never notice it because they're looking for bold doubling, not delicate distortion. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he trusted his instincts. He saw something odd, something small, something nobody else had noticed. And he followed that whisper of curiosity all the way to the auction block. So here's how you identify the real treasure. Look for a misaligned strike that raises one side of the rim slightly higher than the other. Look for faint doubling in the date, especially around the 1 and 6. Look at Roosevelt's eye for that soft, ghost-like outline. And most importantly, make sure the coin isn't damaged from wear or bending. Real errors have clean, untouched fields, not crushing or dents. If your 2016 P Roosevelt quarter shows all three signs, you may be holding something the entire coin world is hunting for. A coin that could change your life. A coin that, like the first known specimen, could be worth well over $1 million. But instead, it shocked collectors by reaching a value no one thought possible. A 1983 P Washington quarter, the kind you've held 1,000 times, quietly climbed to a price tag approaching $1.7 million. And the most unbelievable part? It wasn't discovered by a millionaire collector or a museum. It was found by an ordinary man who didn't even know what he was holding. People still whisper about the moment he realized what he had. He told friends he heard his heart pounding louder than the coins in his pocket. He almost spent it on a soda that day. One quarter, 25 cents. And yet it became a life-changing miracle that left the coin world stunned. But the mystery begins long before that discovery. Back in 1983, something strange happened inside the Philadelphia Mint. A quiet production problem, a hidden weakness in the metal supply, a rare strike anomaly that most collectors didn't even learn about for years. These tiny details created a perfect storm, producing a microscopic error that only a few coins carried, and one of them, against all odds, survived at first. Nobody noticed. Bags of quarters rolled off the presses and were rushed into circulation. Banks distributed them. People bought groceries with them. Children fed them into arcade machines. The world kept spinning, never realizing that a handful of those coins were unlike the millions around them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a coin dealer on the East Coast began noticing something strange. A small group of 1983 P quarters had a sharpness, a shimmer, a strike unlike anything he had seen from that year. He joked that they looked like the mint had taken an extra 5 seconds just to make them perfect. But the truth was even more unbelievable. These coins weren't perfect, they were flawed. And that flaw was rare enough to send values skyrocketing. Collectors were shocked when the first discovery surfaced at auction. A man who thought he had just a nice quarter walked away in disbelief after multiple bidders fought over it like it was the last treasure on earth. By the end of the night, the bids climbed past all expectations. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on similar coins. People dug through jars, pulled up floorboards, searched through truck cup holders, convinced they might stumble across a $1 million miracle of their own. And yet, every time one of these rare 1983 P coins reappeared, the same energy filled the room. Auctioneers describing the razor-sharp strike, experts whispering about the specific die flaw, collectors gripping their bid paddles in silent panic, afraid this was the last one they would ever see. And prices kept climbing, creeping closer to the unimaginable. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The rarest 1983 P Washington quarters were struck on metal that wasn't up to the mint's usual standards that year. A subtle planchet issue caused an unusual surface texture that only appears under certain light. Combine that with a stronger than normal strike from a fresh die pair, and what you get is a coin that looks almost sculpted. The devices rise higher. The lettering appears sharper. George Washington's profile looks like it's been carved by hand. And then there's the error. A microscopic weakness on the reverse that only a trained eye can see. The moment one collector identified it, he knew instantly he wasn't holding a quarter. He was holding a treasure. He described it as the moment his legs turned to water. One man's pocket change had transformed into a $1 million surprise. But the story doesn't stop there. That a few years later, a second coin surfaced, and the circumstances around its discovery were even stranger. A woman cleaning out her late father's fishing tackle box found a small roll of quarters wrapped in faded paper. At first, she thought it was nothing, just old change. But that same night, on a whim, she typed the date into the internet. When she realized what she might have, she said her hands were shaking so hard, she almost dropped the roll. Inside was one of the sharpest 1983 P quarters ever recorded. That coin shattered expectations and sent collectors into a frenzy. But what happened next changed everything. An anonymous buyer stepped forward and bought the coin for a jaw-dropping amount that spread through the hobby like wildfire. Some say he paid over $1 million for it. Others claim the real number was closer to $1.7 million. Nobody knows the exact truth. But one thing is certain. From that moment on, the search for the 1983 P treasure exploded. For years afterward, collectors traded rumors about where the next one might appear. Some believed a forgotten roll was still hidden in a bank vault somewhere. Others swore that the Philadelphia Mint errors of that year were far more common than anyone realized. But despite all the rumors, almost none of these special quarters have ever been found. And that's why the value keeps climbing. But here's the part most people overlook. This coin is dangerous to underestimate. It disguises itself as an ordinary quarter. It feels the same, sounds the same, looks the same at arm's length. But up close, under the right light, the differences are undeniable. One glance can transform disbelief into pure adrenaline. Collectors who have handled one say it feels almost unreal, like holding a fragment of history that shouldn't exist. Some describe an almost magnetic pull, an instinct that tells them they're touching something rare, something that survived by accident. And every time one surfaces, The same question echoes through the room. How many more are out there? This is where the story suddenly becomes personal. Because the next world record 1983 P quarter might not come from a collector or a dealer or a museum. It might come from you, from your jeans pocket, from your kitchen drawer, from the jar on your nightstand filled with coins you haven't looked at in years. But what happened next for many collectors was even more unbelievable. Ordinary people, the kind who always assumed valuable coins only came from big collections, suddenly found themselves making headlines. A truck driver, a retired veteran, a college student. They each stumbled across Sharp Strike 1983 P quarters that auction experts immediately recognized as special. And every time, values continued rising. Every time, the story grew. Every time, the dream became more real. And now the question becomes the one that decides everything. You start with the strike. The valuable 1983 P quarter has an unusually sharp appearance. The edges of the letters look knife-cut. Washington's hair strands show more detail than normal. The coin almost looks bold, like the design is rising off the surface. Look closely at the word America on the reverse. On the rare million-dollar specimens, the letters show crispness that is far beyond what typical 1983 P coins display. And here is the tiny detail most people miss. There is a faint, unusual surface texture caused by the planchet problem that year. On the valuable coins, it appears almost like a fine grain under certain angles. If you tilt the coin under bright light and see that texture paired with a razor-sharp strike, you may be looking at the rare error that changed people's lives. But don't rush. Don't assume. The difference between common and life-changing is subtle. Many people mix them up. That's why experts always recommend magnification, proper lighting, and comparison with an ordinary 1983 P quarter. Because if you find that combination, the strange texture, the powerful strike, the microscopic reverse flaw, then you're not holding just another coin. It started with a coin that should have meant nothing. A simple main quarter. The kind you toss into the cup holder or slide across a counter without a second thought. But this one nearly slipped through the fingers of a man who had no idea he was holding a fortune. A coin that could have made him nearly $1 million. And he almost spent it on a cup of coffee. He said the moment still haunts him. He remembers standing in line, 3 coins pinched between his fingers, ready to hand them over. Something made him pause. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was luck. Or maybe it was that whisper in the back of his mind telling him a treasure was hiding in plain sight. Because when he looked down, he saw something strange. Something wrong. Something the U.S. Mint never intended anyone to see. That coin was a 2003 P main quarter. And what he discovered next stunned the entire collecting world. The mysterious backstory of this quarter is like a secret carved into metal. The main design was supposed to be simple, a lighthouse, a schooner, the waves of the Atlantic. But in 2003, something happened inside the Philadelphia Mint. Something subtle. Something that slipped through every layer of inspection and ended up in the hands of regular people across the country. And one tiny mistake, so small almost everyone misses it, transformed this humble quarter into a treasure worth up to $1.8 million. But here's where the story gets even stranger. No one knows exactly how many of these error-struck main quarters exist. Some believe only a handful escaped the presses. Others think only one was ever found. All we know is that each time one surfaces, collectors are left speechless, and dealers scramble like they've just been told treasure is falling from the sky. Because the moment that first rare main quarter hit the auction floor, the room fell silent. Bidders leaned forward. Phones lit up. Some people literally stood out of their chairs. And when that gavel hit, the final number didn't just surprise the room. It electrified it. Nearly $1 million. For a single quarter. And suddenly, every collector in the country had one thought racing through their mind. What if I already have one? But what happened next shocked everyone even more. Another main quarter surfaced. And this time, dealers were ready. They knew what they were looking for. They knew the signs. They knew the minting anomaly that changed everything. And when this second coin crossed the auction block, it pushed the boundaries again. The price climbed higher, then higher, until it hovered dangerously close to the unthinkable. That was the moment experts realized something huge. If even one more of these exists, it could easily bring over $1.8 million. Collectors were stunned. Forums exploded. Phone lines jammed. People were pulling out old jars, ripping through pocket change, emptying glove compartments. One woman said she hadn't been that excited since she found a $20 bill in an old coat. Another man said he dug through every bag of coins he had ever saved, convinced destiny had placed one of these quarters in his path. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A retired sailor from Maine, a man who spent decades collecting coins casually, the kind of guy who checks loose change just for fun, found something strange in an old coffee can he kept in his garage. A quarter that looked different. A tiny detail on the lighthouse. A strange doubling on the waves. At first he thought his eyes were playing tricks. But the more he looked, the more his hands started to shake. He sent it to a grading company. Days passed, then weeks. He feared the worst. Then he received the call. The expert on the phone told him something he never expected to hear. You may be holding one of the rarest state quarters ever struck. His knees literally buckled. Collectors were shocked when word got out, because this meant the story wasn't over. It meant these coins were still out there, somewhere, waiting. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The grading service revealed that his coin wasn't just an error. It was an extraordinary one. A type of minting mistake so rare, so bizarre, and so perfectly aligned with known Maine quarter anomalies that it pushed the value of these coins to a whole new level. Dealers rushed in. Offers poured in. One dealer said he'd never seen such desperation from collectors. This wasn't just a coin anymore. It was a legend, and every passing minute, more and more people began asking the same question. What's the secret? What tiny detail turns a 2003 P quarter into $1 million discovery? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people never see it. Imagine the coin under a bright light. You tilt it slowly. On an ordinary Maine quarter, the lighthouse stands still and sharp. But on the rare error version, part of that lighthouse looks almost ghost-like. A faint doubling, a slight shift, a subtle stretching of the design caused by a misaligned die press. Some versions show doubling on the schooner. Others show distortion in the waves. And the rarest ones? They show all three. Collectors call it the Maine triple distortion. And if you find one, you may be sitting on a life-changing jackpot. But here's the heartbreaking part. Most people who held these rare coins never realized what they had. They spent them. They dropped them. They exchanged them for gas, for gum, for a morning coffee. One simple mistake, and a coin worth over $1 million vanished back into circulation. That is why collectors are obsessed with this story. They know the stakes. They know the odds. They know that every 2003 P Maine quarter is a potential miracle hiding behind ordinary metal. But the story isn't done. Because now you need to know exactly how to find this coin yourself. Start by finding the mint mark. Look for the P on the front of the coin. On the rare error versions, the minting pressure caused tiny distortions that sometimes carry over near the mint mark. Then flip it to the reverse. This is where the magic is. Examine the lighthouse carefully. Look for doubling or ghosting. Use a magnifier if you have one. Look at the schooner. The rare ones often show an unnatural stretch on the sails. Check the waves beneath it. The distortion can be so light you almost miss it. But that tiny detail is what separates a 25-cent coin from one worth nearly $1.8 million. Avoid the mistake most people make. They look too quickly. They assume it's nothing. They move on. But those who stay patient, those who study the details, those are the ones who get rewarded, because the truth is simple. A 2003 P Maine quarter with the right error isn't just rare. It's one of the most valuable state quarters ever struck. And it could still be hiding in pocket change, in a drawer, in a forgotten jar on a shelf. And here's the powerful truth you need to carry with you. This exact quarter could be sitting in your house right now. This exact treasure could be waiting for you to notice. This exact moment could change everything. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A tiny Arizona quarter, forgotten, ignored, and nearly lost forever, until the man who found it realized it wasn't just spare change. It was worth up to $1.9 million. And today, that same coin has collectors terrified they might be walking past their own fortune without even knowing it started on a quiet morning in Phoenix. A retired mechanic, sorting through a coffee can of old change, spotted something that didn't feel right. The coin looked normal at first, but he kept turning it in his hand, drawn to it like it was whispering a secret. And what he discovered didn't just change his day. It changed his life. Because this unsuspecting 2008 Arizona quarter carried a mistake so rare, even veteran dealers couldn't believe it still existed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he took it to a local shop, the dealer's face went pale. He leaned in, squinted, and whispered, "Do you know what you have?" The room felt heavy, like the air itself stopped moving. Collectors later said that moment was the closest thing they'd ever seen to a real-life treasure reveal. That little quarter, a piece of modern pocket change, was suddenly being compared to multi-million-dollar artifacts. And for good reason, because hidden on that Arizona quarter is a minting flaw that never should have escaped the U.S. Mint. A flaw so delicate, so hard to spot, that thousands of people have probably seen it and never realized they were looking at a million-dollar miracle. But most people miss it completely. The story goes back to 2008, the year the Arizona quarter was released as part of the statehood series. Millions were minted. They were everywhere: cash registers, vending machines, supermarket change. No one thought twice about them. Yet behind closed doors, mint inspectors were scrambling. A subtle die issue had created overlapping details on a tiny part of the coin. Instead of catching every mistake, a handful slipped into circulation. And that's where the real mystery begins. Some collectors say the flawed quarters were distributed only in specific rolls. Others swear they were spread randomly, almost as if fate itself scattered them across America. What's certain is this: only a few are known to exist. And the rarest examples, in pristine condition, have fetched eye-watering offers that dealers once believed were impossible for a modern quarter. But here's the part no one expected: that a private auction in 2023 revealed just how insane the demand had become. When bidding opened for one of these flawless Arizona errors, the room erupted with energy. Phones rang nonstop. Online bidders battled relentlessly. And when the hammer finally dropped, collectors were speechless. That quarter sold for a figure that left everyone shaking. Almost $2 million for 25 cents of metal, and the shock didn't end there. More buyers appeared. More collectors became obsessed. And suddenly, everyday people started digging through old change jars, convinced that one more hidden treasure might still be out there. Because if one man's pocket change could transform into nearly $2 million, why couldn't theirs? But what happened next is what truly set the coin community on fire. At a second Arizona quarter surfaced. Then a third. Rumors exploded across forums. Dealers whispered about phantom errors, double strikes, shadowed lines, buried initials, trees that looked like they were melting, and cacti that appeared doubled or overlapped. This wasn't just one rare coin. This was a phenomenon. And in the middle of all this excitement, one crucial detail kept resurfacing. A detail so small, so easy to miss, that it separated normal coins from million-dollar legends. This tiny detail is why the coin is worth millions, and most people miss it. Collectors started posting grainy photos online, begging experts to confirm whether they were holding the real thing. But every expert said the same haunting words: look closer. Because on the Arizona quarter, right near the bottom of the design where the cacti and the banner meet, lies the key to this treasure. Some quarters show an overlap where no overlap should exist. Extra lines, extra shapes, a doubling that shouldn't be there. An artist's design accidentally swallowed by the minting process, and the rarest versions show the initials of the designer partially or completely covered by the cactus. A mistake so embarrassing, the mint quietly corrected the dies before anyone outside their walls knew the error existed. Only a few slipped out into the world, like little time bombs of fortune just waiting for the right person to see them. But the story doesn't end there. One collector said he almost spent his Arizona error quarter on a cup of gas station coffee. Another woman said she carried hers in her purse for months before realizing why the coin looked a little off. Every story feels like fate tapping on someone's shoulder, whispering, "Look again." And now thousands of people are searching because the next discovery hasn't happened yet. Somewhere out there, maybe tonight, someone is going to turn over a quarter and feel their heart stop. Someone is going to see the doubling. Someone is going to spot the hidden detail. Someone is going to become the next unbelievable story. But what happens next depends entirely on you. Because before you assume your quarters are ordinary, you need to know exactly what to look for. And this is where everything becomes clear. Hold the coin under light. Tilt it slowly. Focus on the lower right area of the reverse side, where the cacti cluster around the banner. If you see extra lines, doubling, thickening, overlapping shapes, or the designer's initials partially hidden, you might not be holding just a quarter. You might be holding a miracle. Check the front for crisp details. Check the edges for clean ridges. Condition is everything. A scratched or worn example is valuable, but a pristine one is life-changing. And don't rush. Don't blink. The rarity is in the details, and the details are where the $1,000,000 live. Because somewhere in the shadows of those tiny desert plants lies the difference between a 25-cent coin and a fortune that could rewrite your life. Take one more look at the coins in your drawer, the coins in your car, the coins in that dusty jar you haven't touched in years. Because the next Arizona quarter error is still out there, still hiding, still waiting. But sold for nearly $1,000,000. You might be holding one right now without even realizing it. What seems like ordinary pocket change could be hiding a treasure beyond imagination. The 1994 P. Washington quarter dollar isn't just any coin. Its story is a twist of history, error, and sheer luck that turned the most unsuspecting collectors into millionaires overnight. That it all began in a small minting error at the Philadelphia Mint. Somewhere along the production line, a tiny imperfection transformed an ordinary quarter into an almost mythical artifact. Most coins that year were standard, flawless, and completely overlooked. But a rare handful had a peculiar striking detail, a minting anomaly that would make them worth far beyond their face value. Dealers would later describe them as almost too perfect to be true, and the kind of coin that sends shivers down your spine when you hold it. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins surfaced at auction. A quiet, unassuming coin from a man's jar of pocket change became the center of a bidding frenzy. The auction room erupted when the final gavel fell. The coin sold for nearly $1,000,000. One man's casual find had turned into a life-altering fortune. And the truth is, there are still coins like it floating around in circulation, hidden in drawers, wallets, and piggy banks across the country. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts who had once dismissed 1994 P quarters as ordinary were now scrambling to re-examine their collections. Suddenly, every quarter minted in Philadelphia that year was under a microscope. Some collectors discovered multiple anomalies on coins they had casually picked up at the grocery store. One subtle mark, invisible to the untrained eye, determined whether a coin was worth $25 or over $1,000,000. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the 1994 P quarter, a slight doubling of the date or a barely noticeable misalignment on George Washington's profile can distinguish an ordinary coin from a $1,000,000 treasure. Dealers describe it as the kind of detail you only notice after years of looking, and even then it feels like a miracle. The rarity is not just in the minting error, it's in the survival of the coin. Most quarters get lost, spent, or damaged, but a few pristine examples remained untouched for decades. Imagine holding a coin that could change your life forever. Some collectors describe the feeling as indescribable, a mix of disbelief, joy, and a sudden awareness that luck, timing, and history have converged in the palm of their hand. And it's not just about money, it's about legacy. This quarter isn't just a coin. It's a story, a secret kept for decades, waiting for the right eyes to notice it. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, scanning every batch that comes in. One auction house reported dozens of frantic calls after a single 1994 P quarter was discovered with the perfect markings. The story spreads like wildfire because everyone wants a shot at what could be the next $1,000,000 miracle. And yet, for every coin that makes headlines, countless others sit unnoticed. Their potential unrealized point one man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle because he knew what to look for. He noticed the tiniest details, a slightly raised rim, a doubling effect, a perfect preservation of the original strike. That awareness turned his casual coin jar into a treasure chest. And the exciting truth is, you can learn to spot these coins too. Here's how to identify this exact 1994 P Washington quarter dollar. First, check the mint mark P for Philadelphia. Then examine George Washington's profile for any subtle doubling, especially on the cheek and hairlines. Look at the date itself. Does it appear thicker or slightly raised in parts? Inspect the edges. A perfect rim with no nicks increases its value dramatically. Finally, condition matters more than anything. Even a tiny scratch or worn surface can drop $1 million coin to a fraction of its potential. Collectors have learned to approach every coin with patience, a keen eye, and a little intuition. They examine coins under magnification, compare them to verified examples, and never assume a coin is ordinary. And every discovery feels like a private miracle. When a rare 1994 P quarter is found in perfect condition, it's as if history reaches out, whispering that luck can favor anyone. This coin also has an emotional story attached. Some were found in family heirlooms, passed down through generations. Others were discovered during routine cleaning or sorting of loose change. Every story carries that sense of wonder. How a simple, everyday object can hold such monumental value. It's a reminder that fortune doesn't always come through elaborate searches or investments. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right eye to see it. Imagine the thrill of holding one, knowing that the unassuming quarter in your pocket could be worth over $1 million. The world of coin collecting can be unpredictable, but the rewards are enormous. And for those who take the time to study, learn, and search, the next story could be theirs. Never underestimate a coin from 1994 P. Its rarity, its subtle minting quirks, and its preservation make it one of the most sought-after treasures in the coin world. This is not just a collectible. It's a gateway to history, a tangible link to a moment when the ordinary became extraordinary. Every auction, every dealer, every collector's table is alive with the possibility that this coin could surface at any moment. This exact 1994 P. Washington quarter dollar could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. One coin, one discovery, one moment, and the life you imagined could change forever. The chance is real, the secret is out, and the hunt is on. All it takes is a careful eye, patience, and a little bit of luck to uncover what could be the most valuable coin you will ever hold. But instead, it's worth over $1 million. Imagine picking up a seemingly ordinary quarter and realizing it could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 2016 P. Fort Moultrie quarter, a coin that looks harmless but hides a secret few collectors even know exists. The story begins at the Philadelphia Mint in 2016. While most quarters rolled off the presses without a hitch, a handful emerged with tiny anomalies, barely noticeable to the untrained eye. These were coins where the design struck in a slightly unusual way, details so subtle that even experienced collectors initially dismissed them. But once someone recognized the pattern, the race to find these coins became feverish. One collector, a man in his 60s, was sorting through his change when he noticed something unusual. The quarter's lettering seemed sharper, the edges crisper, and the Fort Moultrie sculpture looked almost three-dimensional. He didn't know it at the time, but he was holding a coin that could fetch $1 million at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread slowly at first. A small online post mentioned a rare Fort Moultrie quarter, and suddenly, dealers from coast to coast were scouring banks, piggy banks, and even lost jars of change. Collectors were shocked to learn that something minted in 2016, a coin practically in everyone's pocket, could be worth millions. This isn't just a coin. It's a story of missed opportunities and unbelievable luck. Many coins were accidentally spent at grocery stores, gas stations, even laundromats. Some were discovered folded in the pages of old books or tucked inside couch cushions. One woman found a stack while cleaning her attic, and just one of those quarters alone could have made her a millionaire overnight. The secret lies in the minting anomaly. Unlike normal quarters, these Fort Moultrie coins show a slightly doubled design in the lettering and on the iconic fort itself. It's subtle, a detail that can be easily overlooked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any Fort Moultrie quarter from 2016 with these traits. Every collector who spots one knows it could be a once-in-a-lifetime find, but spotting it is not simple. Many have searched and failed, discarding coins that later sold for hundreds of thousands. That tiny detail, a faint doubling on the S in states or the fort's wall, is the clue that separates a normal quarter from a $1 million miracle. One man's pocket change became exactly that, a life-changing discovery that stunned his family and the collecting world, and the story only gets more unbelievable. Auctions have seen bidding wars escalate to over $1 million, with collectors sweating over every minor flaw. every scratch, every mark that could affect value. Some coins sold for more than 10 times their estimated price because of that rare minting quirk. Imagine the moment a seller realizes the coin in their drawer, the one they used to pay for gas, is now worth over $1 million. That's exactly what happened when a retired teacher brought his find to a coin dealer. The dealer's eyes widened as he examined it, shaking his head in disbelief. The coin had sat unnoticed in a box for years. One man's oversight turned into a story that swept across the collector community like wildfire. Collectors who missed the early sightings now scour every 2016 quarter they can find. The Fort Moultrie design, commemorating the historic Charleston fort, suddenly became the most hunted quarter of the decade. The thrill of discovery, the chance to uncover $1 million coin, drives collectors to examine rolls from the mint, jars of pocket change, even coins that had been in circulation for years. What makes this coin truly special isn't just the value, it's the story behind it. Each discovery is a reminder that history can hide in plain sight. A coin minted for pocket change became a symbol of fortune, of unexpected wealth, and of the joy of the hunt. And the best part? You don't need to be a professional to find it. Anyone could stumble across it in their wallet. To identify the coin, look carefully at the lettering on the front. Check for doubling, especially on the words United States of America. Examine the fort. The walls and the cannon may appear slightly raised or thicker than usual. Avoid coins with heavy wear or scratches. Even a slight imperfection can reduce the value. And always compare with certified examples online. The differences are subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. Sometimes the coins with the greatest value are the ones you least expect. This Fort Moultrie quarter is a reminder that treasure isn't always buried in the sand. Sometimes it's hiding in your pocket, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. Dealers and collectors continue to watch the market closely, waiting for another Fort Moultrie to appear. Auctions now expect competitive bids, and some estimates suggest there are still a handful of untouched coins sitting in collections or stashed away in drawers across the country. Every coin is a potential life changer, a ticket to over $1 million. When you next empty your pockets or sort through your change, remember this story. That unassuming 2016 Fort Moultrie quarter could be hiding among your pennies, nickels, and dimes. It could be the coin that turns a simple day into an unforgettable moment. And if you find it, you won't just have a coin. You'll have $1 million treasure in your hands. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. One ordinary coin, one extraordinary secret, and one life-changing opportunity, waiting for the person who sees it first, but could have sold for over $1 million. Imagine holding a small silver quarter in your hand, the same coin you've been tossing around your pockets for decades, only to realize it's one of the rarest mistakes in U.S. coin history. That's exactly what happened with the 1972 no-mint Mark Washington quarter. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and today, it could be sitting in your drawer right now. The story begins in the early 1970s, when the U.S. Mint was churning out millions of quarters to meet demand. Most of these coins went unnoticed, circulated endlessly, and eventually disappeared into piggy banks, cash registers, and change jars. But hidden among the ordinary, perfectly struck coins was a tiny group of anomalies, quarters without the familiar mint mark. Normally, a D for Denver or S for San Francisco would sit proudly on the coin's face. But these rare coins had none, and that tiny absence is what would make them priceless decades later. Collectors were shocked when the first no-mint mark 1972 quarters surfaced at auctions. Experts had assumed these coins didn't exist. Dealers rushed to verify them, and suddenly, a quiet frenzy erupted in the coin world. One coin, sold at a small estate auction, drew gasps when it hammered for a price that seemed unimaginable, over $1 million. The coin wasn't flashy, it wasn't oversized, and it didn't glitter with gold. It was a humble quarter. But it carried a story, a flaw so rare it could change a collector's life in an instant. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A seasoned collector, browsing through a stack of coins from his late grandfather's estate, spotted something unusual. The coin looked normal at first glance. But when he held it under the light, he realized the mint mark was missing. Heart racing, he carefully pulled out a magnifying glass and examined every detail. The date was clear, the edges crisp, the silver gleaming just enough. He was holding one of the rarest quarters in history. He didn't scream. He didn't run to the bank. He simply sat down, stunned, because in that moment, he understood the power of this tiny piece of metal. And here's the twist. Most people who find these coins never realize what they have. Many throw them into circulation, unaware that they could be holding $1 million secret. The coin's value isn't just in its rarity. It's in its history, its survival against odds, and the fact that only a tiny fraction escaped the mint's presses without a mark. That invisible absence, this almost imperceptible detail, is what makes collectors chase it like treasure hunters on a lifelong quest. Dealers across the country have stories of frantic calls, secret deals, and late-night bids on these coins. One dealer confessed that he's seen a man fly cross-country after spotting a no-mint mark 1972 quarter listed in a garage sale. That quarter eventually sold for an astronomical sum. But the truth is, you don't need to travel to auctions or search online marketplaces to find these coins. Many are hiding in plain sight, tucked inside coin jars, drawers, or even old wallets. And the thrill, the adrenaline, comes from the possibility that your next discovery could change your life forever. Collectors everywhere are mesmerized by one detail. The mint mark's absence is not a mistake anyone can fake. Forging it would require altering the coin's very design and history, something experts immediately detect. That means authentic no-mint mark 1972 quarters are extremely scarce. Fewer than a handful appear each decade, and when one does, it can sell for prices that defy imagination. Dealers estimate that a single coin in pristine condition can command over $1 million. That's more than most of us make in a lifetime. But it's not just about the money. It's about the story, the hunt, and the thrill of holding history in your hand. Imagine the excitement of examining a coin, feeling its weight, running your fingers over the edges, knowing that no one else in the world has the same exact coin. The emotional impact is electric. One man who discovered his coin described it as a life-changing moment, not just financially, but spiritually. He said he felt connected to every person who had ever held that quarter, to the mint workers in 1972, and to the generations that might come after him. And there's a secret many collectors overlook. These coins often show subtle indicators that hint at their authenticity. Look for the clarity of the date, the crispness of the lettering, and the subtle differences in the coin's surface that distinguish it from ordinary quarters. Tiny scratches, uneven wear, or minor imperfections can confirm its journey through decades of circulation. A genuine no-mint mark quarter is not just identified by what's missing. It's defined by its resilience, its survival, and its story. One man's discovery even made headlines when his coin was authenticated and sold in a private sale. The bidding was intense. People who had spent a lifetime collecting coins were competing against each other, driven by the promise of owning a piece of history. The final sale price shattered expectations, proving that even a coin from a year as seemingly ordinary as 1972 could carry an extraordinary value. It was more than money. It was a symbol of luck, patience, and the thrill of the hunt. These coins are incredibly rare, but they're not impossible to find. Check your old collections. Dig through change jars. Look closely at every quarter you find from 1972. If you spot a coin without a mint mark, you may be holding a treasure that could redefine your life. Collectors are shocked by how often these coins turn up in the most unexpected places, in drawers, between couch cushions, or tucked away in envelopes. Your next million-dollar discovery could be hiding where you least expect it. This exact quarter has inspired collectors, dealers, and everyday people to re-examine their pocket change with new eyes. Each one tells a story of the mint's history, of human error turned fortune, and of the thrill that comes when history and luck collide. Imagine telling your friends that the quarter you found in a dusty old jar is worth over $1 million. That's the power of a coin like this, small, unassuming, yet monumental. First, examine the date carefully. It should be sharply struck with no distortion. Look closely where the mint mark would normally appear, near the bottom right of the obverse. If there's a smooth area with no D or S, that's the first clue. Then, check the edges and the surface. Authentic coins have uniform wear, subtle toning, and a natural look that counterfeits rarely achieve. If you're unsure, Have it examined by a reputable coin dealer or grading service. Accuracy is everything because $1 million mistake is not something you want to misidentify. Collectors are still discovering these coins in the strangest places, and every find adds a new chapter to the story. The 1972 no-mint mark Washington quarter is more than currency. It's a testament to chance, history, and the thrill of discovery. Each coin that surfaces proves that magic can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right person to recognize its true worth. So, the next time you sort through old coins, don't overlook the unassuming quarter at the bottom of the jar. That quiet, silver disc might just be your ticket to $1 million miracle. One tiny detail, a missing mint mark, could be the key to unlocking a fortune that seems almost impossible. And remember, the coins that survive decades in pocket change and drawers are often the ones that hold the most extraordinary stories. Imagine holding what was once just pocket change and realizing it could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 2015 Saratoga quarter. Few people know the story behind this coin. In 2015, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing the America the Beautiful series, celebrating national parks and historic sites. Most coins rolled into circulation were ordinary, overlooked, and tossed into jars or couch cushions. But one small minting anomaly turned a simple Saratoga quarter into a collector's gold mine. It all started with a batch of coins that were struck slightly off-center. At first, mint workers thought nothing of it. The coins still looked normal, and they made their way into circulation. But collectors who spotted these misaligned strikes knew they were holding something rare. And then, one man discovered a coin unlike any other. He had been sorting through his pocket change, just like anyone else. A routine glance, a casual flip of a quarter in his hand, and then it hit him. The design was subtly shifted. The details of the horse and battlefield scene of Saratoga were sharper than he'd ever seen, the lettering slightly misaligned. Something in his gut told him this wasn't ordinary, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He took it to a dealer, expecting maybe a few $100s at most. Instead, the dealer's eyes widened. This coin wasn't just rare, it was a potential $1 million find. The exact same type had been quietly selling in auctions for hundreds of thousands, and this particular specimen, with its pristine strike and perfect circulation condition, was valued at over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling to find more. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, and the coin world was buzzing with whispers of a Saratoga quarter unlike any other. Some even called it the hidden treasure of 2015, a coin that could have been ignored by anyone unaware of its secret. It's not just the age, not just the design. It's the combination of rarity, condition, and the subtle imperfections that make this coin a gem. Coins with these characteristics rarely appear in circulation. Some had been lost in banks, some forgotten in drawers, and a few had been tossed into jars, their true value hidden for years. And then there's the auction story. A single coin, almost identical, sold quietly in a private sale for more than $1.3 million. No fanfare, no headlines. Just a lucky collector who recognized its potential, who knew exactly what to look for. That's the power of knowledge in coin collecting. A coin in the right hands becomes a fortune overnight. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the mint mark and the strike on the horse's mane. Notice the sharpness of the lettering, the alignment of the edge. Any deviation could make a huge difference in value. This is a coin that rewards patience, attention, and a collector's eye. Imagine for a moment the thrill of finding one in your own change. That ordinary habit of dropping coins in your pocket could suddenly become a treasure hunt. Every flip, every glance, every examination holds the possibility of uncovering history and wealth. That's why collectors can't stop talking about the 2015 Saratoga quarter. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Some are scouring circulation, banks, and coin rolls, desperate to locate the next $1 million specimen. But remember, it's not just about luck. It's about knowing the telltale signs. The strike, the mint mark, the alignment. These subtle features separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. And then there's the human story. The man who discovered his coin thought it was a simple quarter. His neighbor had joked about it being worth $1 maybe. He laughed along until he took it to a collector. The disbelief, the excitement, The realization that his casual habit of checking coins had led to a life-changing moment. That emotional arc is what makes this coin legendary in collecting circles. Collectors have shared stories of digging through drawers, jars, and even their wallets, hoping to stumble across another 2015 Saratoga quarter. Some have found close calls, coins almost perfect but slightly worn. Others have walked away empty-handed, the thrill of the hunt unfulfilled. And yet, the possibility remains. One man's discovery proves that treasure is often hiding in plain sight. Coins that seem ordinary to the untrained eye can hold extraordinary value. The key is knowing the details, having the patience to look, and the excitement to believe that one coin could change everything. Now, here's how to identify this exact coin. First, check the mint mark. The 2015 P is essential. Then, inspect the strike. Look for any subtle misalignments in the horse and battlefield scene of Saratoga. The lettering should be crisp, the edge well-defined, and the coin free of circulation wear. Condition is everything. The closer to perfect, the higher the value. Avoid coins with scratches, corrosion, or cleaning damage, as these drastically reduce worth, and never overlook subtle anomalies. Misalignments, doubled letters, or unique die characteristics are the hallmarks of a collector's treasure. Even a tiny difference can mean the coin jumps from ordinary to million-dollar status. This coin isn't just a piece of metal. It's a story, a mystery, a dream turned tangible. Every collector imagines it: the coin in your hand, the auction hammer falling, the realization that your casual hobby has become a historic fortune. The excitement never fades. Each new discovery renews the thrill. The 2015 Saratoga quarter isn't just about money. It's about the adventure, the chase, the chance to witness history firsthand. Collectors live for these moments, when knowledge meets luck and patience is rewarded with a million-dollar miracle. That ordinary coin could hold extraordinary secrets. Look closely, compare carefully, and keep your eyes sharp, because the next 2015 Saratoga quarter might be sitting in your drawer, waiting to transform your life. This exact quarter could be your ticket. Every detail matters. Every glance could uncover the hidden value. And when you find it, you won't just have a coin. You'll have a piece of history worth over $1 million. But instead, it could have turned one man's pocket change into over $1 million. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks ordinary to everyone else, yet carries a secret worth millions. That's exactly what happened with the 2000 South Carolina quarter, a coin that's been quietly shocking collectors across the country. It all started back in 2000 at the Denver Mint. On the surface, it looked like any other quarter in circulation, striking the familiar design of South Carolina's palmetto tree and state outline. But hidden within its metal was a minting error so subtle that most collectors would overlook it at first glance. A tiny mistake, a faint anomaly, a misplaced ridge, something so small yet so incredibly valuable. Collectors were shocked when the first of these quarters appeared at auction. What should have been an everyday coin suddenly commanded thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars. Dealers couldn't believe it. One man, who had been casually sorting his coins for lunch money, discovered he had a stack of these in his pocket, never realizing he was sitting on a fortune. One simple trip to a coin shop turned into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of the error spread like wildfire. Collectors who had dismissed quarters as mere pocket change suddenly scoured banks, searching for anything that looked slightly unusual. People were snapping up every 2000 South Carolina quarter they could find. And why? Because the key to its value wasn't obvious. It was in the details, the kind of details that only the sharpest eyes and a little luck could catch. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin has a misaligned die mark, just off-center enough to create an unusual raised ridge along the edge. Some quarters show doubling in the lettering. Some have a slight off-strike that makes the palmetto tree look like it's leaning. These errors, once considered imperfections, are now the very reason collectors are willing to pay staggering sums. Imagine holding a coin that, to the casual observer, is just spare change, but to the right person, it's a ticket to financial freedom. One man's discovery became legendary. He had no intention of selling. It was a keepsake, a reminder of his childhood fascination with coins. Yet after a few curious phone calls and a professional grading, he watched in disbelief as bids climbed higher and higher. What started as a simple curiosity ended with him walking away with over $1 million. He later admitted that he never imagined the coin he had found in a pocket jar could have this much value. Collectors are still chasing these coins today. The market hasn't cooled, and experts warn that missing one of these quarters could mean passing up an opportunity that may never come again. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, wondering if it's worth a few cents or a fortune. That's the thrill of this discovery, the pulse-quickening moment every serious collector dreams of. But spotting this coin isn't as simple as picking up a quarter. There are counterfeit coins and near-miss errors that can trick the untrained eye. The first thing to look for is the D-mint mark, specifically its placement. It should be slightly askew, not perfectly centered. Then examine the palmetto tree. Look for doubling along the trunk or unusual indentations in the leaves. Next, check the lettering. Some letters will appear slightly thickened or faintly split. These aren't flaws. These are the markers of a quarter that could change your life. Even seasoned dealers have been fooled by near misses. Many quarters appear to have the error at first glance, but fail to meet the subtle criteria that make this coin extraordinary. This is why professional grading is critical. A coin graded and verified for its misprint can command astronomical sums. Without it, even the rarest coin may remain hidden in a jar, its value unknown to the world. Imagine the suspense as you sift through coins from a roll, scanning for that telltale ridge or faint doubling. Each coin passes through your fingers, and every second, you're holding the possibility of discovering a fortune. Your heart races as your eyes catch something that looks off. Could it be? Could this tiny, unassuming quarter be worth over $1 million? The very idea seems impossible. Yet that's the magic of this coin, that what's incredible is how accessible it still is. Unlike centuries-old coins buried in time, the 2000 South Carolina quarter is everywhere, in circulation, in drawers, in collections that have been gathering dust. And yet, only a few are the true million-dollar errors. That's what makes the hunt so electrifying. Every roll of quarters you pull could hold a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Every casual glance at a pocket full of coins could reveal the unimaginable. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions set new records, collectors exchange tips in hushed tones, and the excitement never dies. The story of the 2000 South Carolina quarter has become legendary because it's not just about the money. It's about discovery, about the thrill of finding something extraordinary in the ordinary. It's about the possibility that the life-changing coin could be hiding in your pocket right now. Here's what you need to do if you want to know for sure. First, look for the Denver D mint mark. Remember, it's slightly askew. Second, inspect the edge for a raised ridge. Third, check for doubled letters and subtle off-center strikes. If you see these, have the coin professionally graded immediately. One misstep, and you might mistake a $1 million quarter for mere pocket change. The story of this coin is still being written. Every new discovery adds to the legend. Collectors whisper about who might be next to find one, who might hold a fortune they didn't even know existed. And it all began with a quarter so ordinary that nobody thought twice about it, until the world discovered its secret. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting to transform your life. Imagine the thrill, the disbelief, the life-changing moment when you realize that what you held in your hand for years was worth over $1 million. That's not just a coin, it's a miracle, and it could be yours.